All right, I think I'll start off. Who in here has a cat at home? Just one? What's their name, Jalia? Mimi. Oh, I had a dog called Mimi. Only one person, so we've only got one cat lover in the whole room. You like cats, you just don't have them.
I had 8 cats because my cat has 7 kittens.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have a cat and he's very cute, but I don't have a picture for you.
I like cats too, but I can't have a cat because I'm 3 floors up, so sadly.
Yeah. Oh well, you can still look at them from
Yes.
afar.
Okay.
Right. Now, I wanted to do this one because I think it's a topic that seems quite niche, but actually when you think about the amount of books with cats as characters and even main characters, there's an abundance of them. There's so many of them. Even we were just chatting upstairs, you all thought, I couldn't think of any, and then once we said one, you could then come up with loads and loads and loads. And, you know, our sort of love of cats in books and stories isn't just a modern thing. Cats and humans have been a part of each other's lives for thousands of years. And they have come up in hundreds of folk tales and oral stories and just sort of cultural stories, and that has really kind of informed how much we like cats today. So I think we'll just begin with the sort of cultural group that I can imagine you think of the most when we think of cats. Can anyone think of that? Where's a time and a place that you associate with loving cats? Josie. Yeah, Josie? Not Josie,
Juno.
sorry, Juno.
Well, sort of like children's books.
Children's
so, like,
books?
Mog the Forgetful Cat, and also like Alice in Wonderland,
Mhm.
the Cheshire Cat.
That's right, but also think thousands and thousands of years ago. Can you think of sort of a time and a place where cats were a big part of it?
Like ancient Egypt.
Ancient Egypt, yes. So ancient Egypt, I think, is definitely one of the first places we think of that had a huge love for cats, and loads of stories came out of that, and their love of cats has kind of filtered through history and filtered through cultures until now, and that's what has informed loads and loads of different stories that have come out about cats. And we know that they absolutely loved cats, right? And even one of their gods, a goddess called Bestat, she was depicted as a cat or a woman with a cat's head, and she was a very popular deity or god at the time, and sometimes even took on the form of a lioness, and there was obviously a lot of stories and tales that came out about her, so she's probably a very, very early sort of tale or story about a cat-like creature or a cat-like woman. The Greek historian Herodotus, I don't know if any of you girls know this, he reported that whenever a household cat died in ancient Egypt, when he visited there, the entire family would mourn like it was a member of the family, and they would shave off their eyebrows. Families also took their dead cats to the sacred city of Bubastis, where they were embalmed and buried. So they would sort of treat their cats and their family like it was a family member. It was a huge part of their way of life. Yes.
They also mummified cats.
They did mummify cats, yeah.
Have you seen them at the British Museum? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else seen them at the British? Yeah. They're amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, they're really
Yeah.
cool. And it just shows how much, as a culture, they just love cats and sort of saw them as such a big part of their life, which, you know, as I said, that sort of filtered through to so many different stories. And this Egyptian love of cats...
Hi, Mr. Sanders.
Okay.
Our theme today is cats in literature.
Cats.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah.
I'll stay for a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, this Egyptian love of cats inspired Greek and Roman mythology, as I said earlier with the Greek historian who was writing about cats. And the Romans regarded cats in sort of mythical symbolism, in a way of they were mythologized. They were thought to embody independence and freedom, and they were the only animals allowed inside of Roman temples. The Roman goddess Libertas is often shown with a cat in a lot of the depictions of her, and so cats in mythology from this original love of cats from the Egyptians kind of filtered through. In Ovid's Metamorphosis, when the gods flee to Egypt, they take animal forms, and the goddess Diana turns into a cat. That's a big part of
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't realise that. Wow.
Yeah. And the Greeks even later synchronized their own goddess Artemis with the Egyptian goddess Bastet, who I mentioned earlier, and she became associated with cats, inspired by the Egyptian goddess. So, you know, there's a huge history. It goes back so far. We do also see, there's a picture here somewhere, sort of felines, not cats necessarily, but, you know, cat-like creatures mythologized through monsters such as the Sphinx and the Chimera. Is that how you say it? Chimera, which is a sort of a hybrid creature. I don't know how to explain it, but it's depicted as a lion with the head of a goat and a tail that sort of has a snake's head on it. There's a picture there. Do you want to show the other table? Which, you know, is not the most positive depiction of a cat-like animal, but, you know, it clearly shows that cats are coming up in, you know, these Greek and Roman tales. Now, have you all heard of the Persian cat? Persian cat, there's a picture on the table here somewhere. Yeah, there you go. They're like really cute, big, fluffy cats. And Persian cats are a really ancient breed of cats. And there is a Persian tale from ancient folklore that claims cats were created magically, and that's how they came to the world. I've got the story here. I'll read it out to you. It's quite cute. The great Persian hero Rustum, out on campaign, one night saved a magician from a band of thieves. Rustum offered the old man the hospitality of his tent, and as they sat outside under the stars, enjoying the warmth of a fire, the magician asked him what he wished for as a gift in repayment for saving his life. Rustum told the old man that there was nothing he desired, since everything he could want he already had, and the scent of the smoke and the beauty of the stars overhead was all he could ever need. The magician then took a handful of the smoke, added flame, and brought down 2 of the brightest stars from the sky, kneading them together in his hands and blowing on them. When he opened his hands towards Rustum, the warrior saw a small smoke-grey kitten with eyes as bright as the stars and a tiny tongue which darted like the tip of the flame. And in this way, apparently, the first Persian cat came to be created as a token of gratitude. And so in Persian sort of folklore, cats recur as a sort of creature of safety and comfort and just sort of the best gift that you can be given, which I think is very sweet. And that's probably why we, you know, the breed of the Persian cat is still such a sought after breed and is still, you know, is still named that. I thought that was very cute. Just imagine someone opening a smoke and there being a tiny little kitten in there. Yeah, probably because they are big fluffy cats. Now, I don't know if you know about the sort of relationship of cats in the East, particularly in Japan, but they love cats in Japan. We spoke a little bit about this in a few Litsocs, where I was reading a lot of Japanese literature, and cats are in so many of the books that you can read from Japanese translations. But basically in Japan, cats are revered for giving good luck and offering the owner sort of positive results, positive things in their life, and they're a source of comfort and things like that. And you know the popular sort of Japanese cat figurine, like of the waving cat, where its hand is like this? It is believed in Japan to bring the owner blessings, and that is why they are sort of depicted with a little waving hand, because it's a beckoning motion to say, come to me, I'll make you safe, I'll bring you comfort, yeah.
And is that the one there?
There's a picture of one, here. Do you recognise that? I'm sure you've seen that. But this actually comes from another folk tale in Japanese lore. And a legend has it that a cat waved a paw at a Japanese landlord who was intrigued by a gesture in a shop and went towards it. A few seconds later, a lightning bolt struck exactly where he had been standing, and he said this good fortune was because of the cat that was in the window, and it has become a symbol of good luck because of that. I think there are probably many other versions of that story, but that's, you know, I think there's an earlier one that says there's a man sitting outside a temple, I'll probably pronounce this wrong, Gotokuji, and she raised her paw at him to sort of welcome him in again. And again, attracted by the jester, he went into the temple and lightning struck where he was stood. And it saved his life and gave him great honours.
So she saved his life.
So there's versions where it's a religious temple, there's versions where it's sort of a modern tale with a landlord, but essentially it's this idea of the cats kind of, offering you good luck and saving you. And that's why they're put in the front of shops and restaurants and things like that, to say sort of, come to us, we're a good place to be, we'll give you comfort. I thought that that was really sweet. I didn't know about any of that before. I just thought they were sort of a a tokenistic thing, but there's a whole folklore story behind that.
Well, no wonder Hello Kitty went so mad then.
Yeah, true. And that is probably why cats are seen in Japanese stories as such a source of comfort and such a positive entity, because of it's got such a long history with that. There's a few books I can talk about here in terms of Japanese cat literature. One called The Guest Cat, which I spoke about not long ago. And this is basically about a couple who move into a little flat in Tokyo in the 80s, and their neighbour has this little cat. And what's she called? She's got a really cute name. I read it ages ago. Oh, I can't remember, but her name is really cute.
It's a lovely story.
Yeah, it's a lovely little story. It's only a short book, but it's basically about what this cat does for these people. It completely changes their lives. It makes them see the world differently, and it's not their cat, but she comes in every day and they feed her and she spends time with them, and it's just a really sweet story about how nice cats are. Yeah, but you can see that kind of being influenced by the original folktales. There's another one that I spoke about called The Cat Who Saved Books, which is about a talking cat who sort of enlists a high school student to help him save books that have sort of gone awry.
Has anybody read that?
Yeah, have you read it? It's quite new.
It came out.
I think it's
year.
Is it a young adult book? I wasn't really
it's
sure
young
when I was
adults.
reading it.
It's because it's the young boy, isn't it, who gets quite withdrawn because of his grandfather.
Yes, he has inherited a bookshop that his grandfather owned, but something is happening with all the books and things are going wrong, and a talking cat comes in to tell him, I'll help you save the books.
It's sort of magical realism. It's really, it is a bit bizarre.
It's an odd little thing, but I quite enjoy it.
Yeah, but it's you have to sort of think of it as Japan's answer to sort of magic, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. It's not really sort of explicit magic, as in like wand waving and wizards and all that kind of thing. It's just all a bit magical in its own kind of way.
In its kind of way, yeah.
And the cat's a really good character in that. He's really quite rude and really funny. Bit haughty, as cats often are. But there's another one that just came out that I hadn't heard of called What If Cats Disappeared from the World, which is a story about the meaning of life and how awful it would be if there was no cats in the world, and how sad everyone would be, and how important they are to a lot of people's way of life, which I agree with. And Daria, you probably agree with that too, seeing as you have the cat at home.
Dahlia, what's your cat called? Mimi.
Yeah, she said. It's
Sorry,
very cute. No, it's so cute. But Europe also has a lot of stories about cats. They sort of go from the positive to the negative, but I'm sure you know a lot of the sort of typical things about cats, as in black cats being a bad omen and cats having 9 lives, all of these kind of stories. These come from other folktales all around Europe, from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance, all these kind of different time periods. According to a piece of Italian folklore, on the same night that Mary gave birth to Jesus, a cat in Bethlehem gave birth to a kitten, which is an interesting story. And a medieval king in Wales, I'm going to completely get that name wrong, so I'm not even going to try to say it, passed a legislation making it illegal to kill or harm a cat because he loved to hear stories about cats. So he said, no one can hurt cats, it's illegal, that's it, which, fair enough. But cats were also believed to be witches' companions, as I'm sure we all know, the black cat, because they helped their spells and they would carry messages to the devil for the witches. That was what they were seen as. And this is where the idea of the black cat being a bad omen has really come in, because people would have thought if you were a witch, you would have had a black cat, because, you know, they were dark and they could slink about at night and they would transfer little messages. And that's where that sort of story came in and has influenced a lot of other stories about cats now. Yes, your question.
Black cats, because lots of people think they're bad.
Mm-hmm.
No one's buying them, and they're actually
Yeah.
most of the pet shelters. If it's like a cat shelter, then they're filled up with black cats.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard that
I
too.
heard that too.
It's so
Yeah,
sad.
It's really sad, isn't it?
But it all comes from these old stories. We think that they're not relevant anymore, but, you know, once they're there, they're quite hard to get rid of sometimes, aren't they? Because I'm sure no one would believe that a black cat is, you know, helping a witch anymore, but you still had this idea. I know, they are so cute, aren't they? I always wanted a black cat, but we haven't had one.
I had a black cat who could play football really well with a table tennis ball.
That's so cute.
He was a rescue, and he'd come to us from a flat share, and it was all men, and and they were table tennis freaks, and so Sooty loved playing with a tennis table ball.
That's
Just
so
loved it.
cute. Yeah, my cat, when he was a really tiny kitten, used to play fetch like a dog. You'd get like a little pom-pom or something, you'd throw it for him, he'd catch it like with his little paws and bring it back to you, and you would just be there for ages. It was really funny. You just think, what are you doing? And no one taught you this, you're just doing it. But I'm sure if he was a black cat, he would have been just as cute, you know. They don't. But yeah, this kind of idea of cats being witches' familiars, as they're called, is really sort of influenced so many stories now that we have about black cats. And there's, in Macbeth's opening scene with the witches, isn't there a black cat? Grey Malkin, yeah. And that was probably another story that sort of solidified the idea of black cats being bad, which is a bit sad, but, you know. In Norse mythology even, off you women, the goddess Freya was associated with cats, and farmers would seek protection from their crops by leaving out pans of milk in their fields for her sort of special little companions that would, you know, help her roam the earth. And they also thought that 2 grey cats pulled her chariot. And there was the idea if you know, hurt or harmed a cat, all the milk in the cows would go bad before you'd even, you know, what's it called?
Milk the cow.
Milk it, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's this idea of cats and gods, which we saw in Egypt too. And there's even in Scotland and Ireland a fairy creature-like cat from Celtic mythology. There's a picture of it somewhere, the black one there, called Catsith, or Catsy in Irish, I think. And it is a large black cat with a white spot on its chest. And apparently it's a ghost cat that haunts the Scottish Highlands. It's all black with, the little white on its chest, and it is described as being as large as a dog and chooses to display itself with its back sort of arch, so it walks around like this to scare everybody. If you've had a cat, you know that they sometimes do that weird thing where they kind of make their tail really big and they arch. So this scary dog-sized cat would walk around like that, haunting people.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Imagine that crossing your threshold.
Yeah, and he was obviously a black cat because that means he's terrifying. And the people of the Scottish Highlands in Celtic mythology didn't trust him, and they believe it could steal a person's soul before it kind of had a chance to move on, because the cat would pass over its body before it was buried, and you had to kind of look after your dead so the cat didn't stalk over him and take his soul. And it's all a bit dark and everything, but you know, it's this idea of the black cat again being associated with like evil deeds. Let's see, what else do I have to talk about? There's lots of other tales about cats, like small ones that aren't just stories but little folklore. For example, in the UK, a black cat entering a house or a ship is a good omen in some time periods. It's seen as a good thing. And sailors' wives would have a black cat in her house to make sure her husband was safe on the sea. Where this tale comes from, it's not really sure, because everywhere else they were seen as negative, but, you know, there you go. And in some places, white cats, because they look like ghosts, are told to be unlucky in, you know, ancient folklore. And it was a really popular tale that people used to tell each other in the Victorian times, because they loved ghosts in the Victorian times. You know, they loved all that kind of thing. So a white cat was also seen as a bad thing. So basically, you can have any colour of cat. But cats were also seen as good luck charms by actors in some places in the theatre. And the cats, if they passed over you, would help you cure your stage fright and would offer you support, which I think is not massively dissimilar to the stories that we saw in Japan. And it might have even been inspired by them because the theatre was a huge part of Japanese history. So maybe it kind of came to that idea of support and helping you. Who knows? Now, I'll end with Russia, because apparently in Russia, cats have been considered good luck for, thousands of years. And owning a cat, especially letting one into a new house before other people move in, is said to bring you really good fortune. Cats are often the only animals that are allowed in Christian temples in Russia. And a huge fine is imposed for killing a cat, the same as a horse or an ox if you're on a farm. So they're very revered as animals. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard of the Winter Palace in Russia. Yeah, but many cats actually guard it, and there's loads of cats that will guard the palace, and they kind of have special servants and things like that, and are cared for by special cat volunteers outside the palace. Yeah, apparently. They still are. I found loads of pictures of them online. They all sit outside and they're allowed inside, and they're looked after by employees and volunteers.
When we can go back to Russia again, we can all go, and because it's now a massive museum, so it's fabulous.
Yeah, but roaming with cats. Yeah, apparently they have their own press secretary, and there are about 74 cats that roam the whole museum. It's a lot of cats.
That's an awful lot of cats
in one place.
Sounds like Larry the cat.
Larry the cat.
Yeah. But imagine 74 Larry the cats and they're only down the street. It's quite good.
I love Larry.
I do too.
Got his own tweet.
He'll have a story at some point.
Yeah.
He will,
Yeah,
definitely. He'll come up in something. Now, when you think of cats in modern books, what's one of the first one that comes to your mind? Because I've got one that I think of, but I'm curious what everyone else thinks. Have you got one that comes to your mind first? Yeah?
For some reason, the cat isn't really that remnant.
Mm-hmm.
In his Dark Materials, the Philip Pullman books, Will always loves the cats, and his demon settles to be one.
Yes, you're right. That is a good one.
Oh, I hadn't thought of it. Yes, I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'd forgotten it's that's what happens. Yeah.
No, good one.
Can you remember its name?
No.
You can't
It
know.
settles,
We have a
doesn't
copy.
It's not Moxie, is it Moxie?
I can't remember, but
No, that's not his Dark Materials, is it? Subtle Knife, that's a different...
No, that Subtle Knife is.
Oh, is it?
It's
Well,
the
it's
middle
Moxie,
one, isn't
Moxie
it?
Will's cat. Later, Will's demon settles as a cat.
Ah.
It's called, it says here it's
Moxie.
Moxie.
Oh,
That's
right,
cute.
Okay.
I guess demons are also similar to the familiars, aren't they? The kind of idea of your little companion, and it being a cat is interesting. Well, I was going to say the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. That's always the first one that I think of. And I actually found some interesting information about the Cheshire Cat. Some people think that Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice in Wonderland, found inspiration for the name and the sort of big smile that the cat has in a 16th century carving of a grinning cat on the face of St Wilfrid's Church Tower, which is near where he lived, and there is a picture of it that you can see, and it's this carving of a cat that has this huge big grin. And he wrote in his memoirs that he saw a Cheshire Cat with a gigantic smile carved into the wall. And so, that might have been something to do with an ancient folklore tale that has now he's sort of taken on and inspired.
So presumably this must be in Oxford then?
Yeah, in Cheshire.
Oh, in Cheshire?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right.
And that's why he's called the Cheshire Cat.
Oh, right, okay.
So,
And of course the tree is in Christchurch College where I was in the summer.
Yeah. So who knows why, I don't think anyone knows why that inscription of a big smiling cat is on a church. But, it could have been some sort of ancient tale or story and someone decided to draw it, and now it's influenced probably one of the most famous cats in literature now. It's interesting to think about. Now, with that in mind, I think we'll all talk about one that we like, something more modern. I can start because one of my favourites is probably Tom Kitten by Beatrix Potter.
Oh,
You know Tom Kitten? I've got a picture of him there if you don't know what he looks like. Yeah, he's always been a favourite of mine. He's so cute. I had a Beatrix Potter bedroom when I was really small. And he was just, yeah, he was always one of my favourites. So I've always loved cats. But he's also a kitten in tiny little trousers and a little jacket, which is just, you can't really get much cuter than that, can you? You think about a kitten in a little outfit. And so that kind of probably really inspired my love of cats. And I think he's a very popular cat figure. He's a very funny character. He's very naughty. He's got all sisters. He's just a really funny little character. And also Mog. Does anyone know Mog, the forgetful cat?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, there you go. I'm sure you all love Mog as much as I do and know why. He's just like really silly. Just really good fun, really silly, and is very kind of realistic to what real cats are like. Do you remember Mog? Like just that kind of, I don't know, just forgetting they've eaten or forgetting they've gone outside or just causing havoc at home. I just always loved Mog. That's definitely one of my favourites, and it does go back to these, you know, old stories of cats bringing you comfort and being a member of the family, I think. And yeah, Mog's one of my favourites.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have one they want to talk about? Someone? Yeah.
I think somebody has to say the obvious, which is Harry Potter.
Crookshanks.
Professor McGonagall
Oh,
being-
Professor Mc...
Good
Oh.
thinking, Juno. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I don't really need to say any more to that.
I didn't even
Well,
think about her,
I'd
no.
forgotten about her.
I had
Yes,
too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Crystal.
Oh yeah, there was a second cat in Harry Potter as well. When I think it was the second one, when the wall is written down, like blood was written down on there.
Oh,
the
yeah.
cat-
Mrs.
Mrs.
Norris.
Norris.
Mrs. Norris.
There's
Mrs.
also
Norris.
Crookshanks, mine's
Yeah.
cat.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's three really are there any others? Three main cat characters really. Well, if you think about it, what I was saying about witches' familiars, you know, cats being so associated with witches and wizards, it makes sense that there'd be so many cat characters in her stories because they've always been associated with the two. So she knew what she was doing there, I suppose.
And
Yeah,
also,
Juno.
in Deathly Hallows, I think it is, Umbridge's Patronus is actually a cat.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, she has cats all over her wall.
And she does. She has all
and
the cat plates,
plates
doesn't she?
in her study.
Oh, that's right. In the film,
Yeah.
it's absolutely hideous, isn't it? It's just.
I love
so,
it.
It's so,
love
it's,
it.
Well, I find it so kitsch. But.
It's so it's so pink and fluffy.
Yeah.
And she has all the little kittens on the plates, doesn't she?
I don't think that's pink. Pink is very
As you're proving. But I suppose that's interesting because then in that book we got kind of all the different types of cats. We got the bad cats. We got the kind of the sneaky ones. She's got her Patronus because she's, you know, she's a bit sneaky and mean, isn't she? Which some people think cats are a bit like that. But then you've also got Crookshanks, who is like a big kind of big fluffy cat. Is he a Persian cat, do you think?
I don't know.
He must be.
It was always said that he had like a flat face and was very fluffy.
Oh yeah, he's got really flat. I can't remember what kind of breed that is, but yeah, there's so many cats in Harry Potter. I could
Yeah.
only think of Crookshanks. Yeah, there's loads. You're right.
Of them.
Anyone else?
Anyone
Any
else?
other?
Michael Morpurgo,
Yeah,
lots of cats.
lots of cats. Can you think of a specific one?
9 Lives of Montezuma.
Is that what it's called?
Yes,
I've not
yeah,
read that
yeah.
one.
Titanic one.
Oh yeah.
Where the book about the cat on the Titanic.
Is that Adolphus
Adolphus
Tips?
Catherine or something?
He's clearly got a few then.
He's got a few, hasn't he? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what can you remember about the cat in that story? Does it have like a strong personality, or is it more just like brings the story forward?
The cat is like a big part of it because like
Mm.
every chapter is one of his lives.
Ah.
And at the beginning, it's like loads of kittens, and the farmer kills all of them, but then that one cat survives.
Mm.
And then it's his, like, I think the boy or the mum saves him, and then it's him and Matthew. So it's like the cat and the boy are like going through, and like every life, sometimes like I think he goes to like other places, and then you also see Matthew, and you always see like the 9 lives of Montezuma.
Mm.
And then like he's a very clumsy, I think. I don't know if clumsy is the right word, but he gets up to a lot of stuff.
Mm. I guess that's that idea of the cat having 9 lives.
Mm.
It's such like a a big part of our storytelling with cats, isn't it? It comes up in so many. I don't know why, because all the cats I've had have been not, they've been a bit useless when they're outside. They're always falling off stuff and hurting themselves. But do you think it comes down to them, like, cats falling on their feet and stuff like that? Is that kind of inspired the stories, do you think? Must have done. Any others?
Any others you think of?
There must be a couple. Yeah, Crystal?
There's also Puss in Boots.
Puss in Boots.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's kind of like described as a positive character in this one because it's like brave, adventurous, and it's more kind of child-friendly book.
Mm. He's quite cheeky as well, isn't
Yeah, my brother loves it.
Does
he
he?
watches every day.
Brilliant.
he? That's a really old story, actually,
Yes,
isn't it?
it
Puss
is.
in
It's a
Boots.
very
It's
old-
really
it's a-
old.
Is that like the
17th
new
century, isn't it?
Great in
Boots?
Shrek.
There's
Yeah,
like
he
the
is
new
good in
movie.
He's got great eyes in Shrek.
Yes,
Yeah.
Antonio Banderas in
Yeah,
Shrek.
there is, yeah.
I think the new movie came out, or it's coming out.
Oh, really?
Is it?
A new
Yeah.
Shrek.
Shrek 4 was coming.
Oh, is it?
Oh, is there?
Because there was a
thought
Puss in
Shrek
Boots
was-
movie. Like,
Oh.
Anything else you can
Miss Hunt,
remember?
I've got to go in a minute, but can I just mention two things?
Of course
Yeah.
you may,
So
absolutely.
it's lovely to be at
Mr.
Litsoc again.
Sanders.
Just
It's lovely to see
Well,
you. Welcome.
It's so nice to be back, just briefly.
Those of you who don't know, this is Mr. Sanders, who
Hello.
helps
Hello,
out with the sixth form.
So on the theme, unsurprisingly, Roald Dahl has written an adult scary story about a cat. So you'll know Roald Dahl for writing Matilda and James and the Giant Peach, but he writes lots of adult short stories, and they're generally quite scary, with quite dark themes. And his theme, it's not a story I've read. I've just looked it up, but it's called the cat's name is Edward the Conqueror, and this cat returns, or the wife is convinced that this cat is the reincarnation of Liszt, the composer.
Ah, the wild child, as it
Yeah.
were. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
absolutely. So I might have to dig. It's in. It's one of the tales of the unexpected. So I'll have a look and see what that's about.
Yeah.
But that goes with the theme of cats being linked to darkness and ghost stories
And reincarnation as well.
and reincarnation.
See that
Yeah,
a lot.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But then the cat I remember fairly recently for me, I think, is Scarface Claw. Anyone? Do you know where that comes from?
That rings a bell, but I can't remember what it is.
This is a book that my children certainly read, but maybe it's not. Maybe the book's not read anymore. I think it's Julia Donaldson, isn't it?
I remember
What's-
it.
Scarface Claw is the only cat in a book that's dominated by dogs.
Ah.
Okay.
Isn't it
Really?
Harry McClary?
Harry McClary.
Ah.
Harry McClary from Donaldson's Dairy. Yeah, absolutely. So it's all about dogs, isn't it? But there's one cat, Scarface Claw, who's really vicious, and all the dogs are scared. And Scarface Claw is so scary that when it sees a reflection of itself, it scares itself. Because it's so scary.
I've never known it was a cat. I don't know why cats are always told to
Yeah,
be that
but no,
vicious.
Scarface Claw is, absolutely a vicious cat. So,
I used to love
Fine.
Harry McClary. That's probably why I was like, I
Right,
know.
yeah, yeah.
Really good at it.
yeah, absolutely. Scarface
Oh.
Claw.
Oh, thank you. That's
Thank
great.
you. I'm going
Yeah.
to shoot off. Thank you very much for
No, it's great
allowing
to
me to
see
pop
you.
in. Really
Yeah,
nice
no,
to see you.
absolutely.
Nice to see everyone here.
It's,
So nice to see a well-attended
Talk about
Litsoc. That's
cats.
great.
Yeah, it's great. This is why we're down here, so it's really nice.
Yeah.
Someone earlier did also mention Cat in the Hat. I said Cat in the Hat.
Oh, that
Cat in the Hat?
Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, Cat in the Hat is probably
great.
one of them, right?
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
It, nice to see you, Mr. Sanders. Thanks for coming. Yeah, I was scared by Cat in the Hat as a child.
Were you?
I would never. The pictures. I would never take it out of the library, even though it was, really, really good, sort of practice reading.
Yeah. you just
Really small, but no, it just.
scary.
Yeah, I found it very scary. What's really weird, girls, is that the big issue. Do you know the big issue? Which is sold on the streets by people who are homeless. It's a way of giving them an income, etc. They always have really good articles, and I had bought it a long time ago because it's the 5th of September, and I've been meaning to bring it in to show Mr. Humphreys an article about Bilbo Baggins, and then I turned it over, and there's a list of books with talking cats, top 5.
There you go. Serendipity.
Absolutely. So Puss in Boots is number 2. Cat in the Hat is number 5. There's a Russian tale, The Master and Margarita, which, Lulu, have you read that? used to be the favourite, very, very favourite story of an ex-member of the English department, Mr. Cushing. A talking cat the size of a pig that walks on its hind legs, drinks vodka and hangs around with Satan, causes havoc on the streets of Moscow.
Oh my gosh.
When you're feeling older, and it's absolutely, and it's a satire on the Russian political situation with Stalin. Bulgakov got into real trouble with this. Then there's number 3, Tobermory. That's a very old story by a gentleman called Saki. The cat speaks, but of course the cat also overhears and then reveals the family's secrets. You can imagine that. What would our pets reveal about us? At number 1, which, unless you're from India or in the East, you wouldn't necessarily have read, but anyway, it's the Mahabharata. Lamasa, one of the very first speaking cats. He appears in the Sanskrit epic Mahabharata from the 3rd century BCE. He persuades a mouse to rescue him from a hunter's trap. So completely, he must be very persuasive, is all I can say, this cat. There's the reason they've got this is because there's a new book out called Literary Cats.
Oh.
That the Bodleian from Oxford have published. So there we are, that's why. Any others we can remember before I come with my favourite cat? Anybody? Juno?
The tiger who came to tea, which I used to love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different
Yeah.
type of cat, big cat.
Big cat. Really big cat. Yeah, absolutely. Good. Dahlia?
It's actually the one right here, Paws and Whiskers by Jacqueline Wilson, which I really liked when I was younger. I think it's like short stories about like different types of pets.
Are cats like main characters? Like, can they speak, or is it just about how people would like?
People would.
Oh, okay. Nice. Thank you. Lulu?
I was going to say the
Tiger Came to Tea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember Stanley Tucci reading it in lockdown, didn't he? For the festival, for the Barnes Literary Festival, Kids Lit Festival, which was really special. It was lovely. Judith Kerr, so sadly no longer with us, but it's a fabulous story.
It is.
You may not have come across the author Robert Westall. Has anybody read Blitzcat?
I know what it is.
Lulu, do you know of it?
Yeah.
Do you know? Do you?
Year 6 when we were doing 11 plus, we did we read a passage.
You read a passage, yeah? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah? Well, Blitzcat is set in the Second World War, and this cat is called Lord Gort, and Lord Gort was he's named after the, it's a she actually, she's named after the commander of the British forces at the time. Robert Westall writes quite a lot about the Second World War and what happens to people during it. And this is about this special power that quite often animals have, particularly cats seem to have, of finding their way home. There's a really well-known story called The Incredible Journey about 3 animals that make their way across America. This is based on a real story, and the cat led them.
Is it Homeward Bound?
I think
It's
that's
the
the
movie Homeward Bound.
movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
same story.
And so this cat goes through all this terrible journeys to do with the war, and eventually comes home. And so Dunkirk is in there and all sorts of other things. It's a fabulous story. He had a real love for cats, and Blitzcat came out, I suppose, maybe 20 years ago, maybe not, quite a long time ago anyway. But this is my absolute favourite of his. Now, this is about a famous store, or a famous place in the south of France. Where I've never been. It's called Orange, and it's a town on the top of a great big rock. It's a real place, and Robert Westall had been there, and he uses this town really cleverly, and it's in the place called Les Baux, and basically there's a series of cats and there's a hierarchy, and there are black cats, the Matago, who are great big beefy people, and then there's the Mew, who are intellectuals and know what they're doing, and then there's the Brethren, and the Brethren are the tabbies, the sort of mixed breeds, okay, and they have to be looked after by the Mew and the Matago. And what he's done is he's gone right back to Egypt. So Bestat is in a statue beneath the city. It is the most extraordinary story I've ever come across about cats. And if you like cats, I can't begin to recommend it highly enough. The young Duke who the various people are trying to kill, he's quite young. He's adopted by the cats, and they literally mesmerise him so he becomes a cat.
Wow.
And there are other stories like this as well. Paul Gallico wrote a story called Jenny, where a young boy who has a cat becomes a cat. So it's a sort of recurring theme. And Zoroaster is a sort of different, it's a different version of, there's actually a religion, Zoroastrianism, but what Robert Westall has done is he's taken his name, changed it, and this Zoroaster is a really powerful warrior, and the cats work with him to defeat the enemies. It's, can you see, there's the Mew there, and they're golden, and there's this really fabulous moment where Ammon, who's one of these really special cats, has a choice. He can either go to cat heaven, which means getting on a boat and going down the Nile to see everybody else, or staying with Cam, who's the hero of the story. And so we have this image of this boat, and he's almost at the gangplank, and then he changes his mind and comes back. It's really special.
Never
really,
even heard of that.
no,
Sounds
it's
great.
absolutely. I think it's fabulous. When did it come out?
It sounds very inspired by like the Egyptian.
Yes, very much so,
You know,
and it's
kind of-
all sorts of medieval things as well.
Yeah.
1984, so it's quite old now. But he takes all the medieval legends, bishops, hating cats and killing them, but also the other powerful things that they're really good at as well. So, can we thank Miss Rio for a fabulous,
It's okay.
fabulous walkthrough cat? That's great. Thank you. And thank you for all your contributions as well, everybody. It's really, really nice to hear that you, even if you don't have your own cat, you know about the cat stories. That's great.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So maybe next term we'll do dogs, okay? Which is another whole branch of literature,
It is,
isn't it?
It is.
Okay. All right. I'm going to say goodbye, and thanks for coming, everybody, because it's getting dark. So is everybody all right for getting home? I hope. Okay. All right. Bye.